much for joining us. And look, obviously our thoughts are with the people of Texas following today's horrific incident, details of which are still unfolding as I speak. I am sure that there will be more to say about this in the hours and the days ahead. But for now, we are just going to dive straight in tonight with President Trump, statues of whom will inevitably one day be erected and later taken down amid a storm of controversy. Now, the news surrounding Trump this week was dominated by the bombshell that dropped on Monday.
Huge developments unfolding in Washington this hour after special counsel unveiled the first charges in his investigation into Russian interference in the American election.
Yes, it's finally happening. The first charges in the ongoing scandal that we've been calling Stupid Watergate. A story that, like Watergate, could well end up toppling democracy, but only because one of these idiots slipped on a banana peel, yelled something stupid like, uh-oh, spaghetti-o, and accidentally knocked democracy over. And it is worth looking at Monday's charges one at a time, because they're absolutely incredible. And let's start with Paul Manafort, former Trump campaign chairman, and his business partner, Rick Gates, because the rap sheet against them is impressive.
The 31-page indictment charges that over at least 10 years, the two men set up a scheme to hide tens of millions of dollars in income they received from a pro-Russian Ukrainian political party. Prosecutors allege the scheme involved hiding that foreign work, funneling more than $75 million through unreported foreign bank accounts, laundering tens of millions of dollars, and lying to the IRS and to the Justice Department.
Wow, that is a lot of charges. And Trump must be furious with them, not so much for the part where they allegedly lied to the government, but for where they pretended to have less money than they did. Because I'm pretty sure that that violates the tenets of whatever sticky back issue of Fuckable Yachts magazine that Trump considers his code of ethics. And while they deny all charges, the details here are damning, because according to the prosecutors, not all the money was squirreled away in shell companies and overseas bank accounts. Some of it was used to go shopping.
According to the indictment, Manafort used the money to, quote, enjoy a lavish lifestyle, spending nearly $1 million on antique rugs and more than $1.3 million on fancy clothes.
Over $2 million on rugs and clothes. Now, I can't speak to the quality of his rugs, but how the fuck is this guy spending that much on clothing? He looks like he bought all the suits that he was going to wear for the rest of his life on one day in 1982 with a cashier's check for $900. And when journalists tried to find out where he got his clothes from and called a number of high-end boutiques, they got either denials or no comments from Canali, Isia, House of Bijan, Zegna and Brioni, which is a little surprising because what brand would not want as its public face a man who looks like an extra from a direct-to-DVD mobster movie who fell asleep in a tanning bed? But if I may quote the TSA agent assigned to inspect Mariah Carey's carry-on, let's set aside the $1.3 million in clothes for just a minute, and let's ask the question that Trump asks himself every moment of every day. How does Donald Trump fit into this? Well, to hear him tell it, he doesn't.
The president revealed his thoughts in two tweets. Quote, sorry, but this is years ago before Paul Manafort was part of the Trump campaign. But why aren't crooked Hillary and the Dems the focus? Adding, also, there is no collusion, writing that last but in all capital letters.
Wow, all capital letters. I haven't seen such a forceful denial since every men's clothing store in 2 major American cities denied supplying Manafort with a closet full of boxy, off-the-rack jackets from the Dad's Open Casket funeral collection. And if you think about Trump's defence here, which he definitely hasn't, it's actually pretty strange, because he's essentially saying Manafort had already done all this stuff at the time that I, Donald Trump, decided to hire him as my campaign manager. Which means one of two things. Either Trump did a background check, discovered his suspicious activity and didn't care, or he didn't so much as Google Manafort before hiring him, because everybody knows that Manafort is dodgy. He has represented the interests of strongmen and dictators around the world, including Ferdinand Marcos, Mobutu, Viktor Yanukovych, and Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, the last two of whom had close ties to Putin. In fact, it's since come to light that Manafort may have been in debt to pro-Russian interests by as much as $17 million. And the more we learn about him, the shadier he gets.
Prosecutors have noted that Manafort has 3 U.S. passports with different numbers and recently traveled abroad while using a phone and email registered under an alias.
OK, so, first of all, who outside of Jason Bourne needs 3 separate passports and an alias, besides, of course, the Olsen twin? Because she's got one for Mary-Kate, one for Ashley, and one for Hilary Duff. Oh, that's right. There is also no Hilary Duff. It's just one Olsen twin, moving back and forth very quickly, and then changing her hair and face significantly and standing still in a different place. I'm close. I'm so close to blowing this whole charade apart. Now Trump has argued that Manafort was just with the campaign for a very short period of time. But he held top positions within it for 5 months, during which time he not only organised the convention, he also spoke on the campaign's behalf, with decidedly mixed results.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
Well, there is nothing inherently suspicious about that response at all, except for the sweatiness, the stumbling, and the fact you couldn't even hold eye contact with the camera. Also, while Manafort may have been gone before the election, Gates, his partner, who prosecutors say had 55 bank accounts, he helped run the inaugural committee and has been a frequent visitor to the White House. So again, the question here is, did Trump know all of this and not care? Or did he know none of it because he's incompetent? In other words, is Trump smart enough to be evil? And before you answer that, consider the genuinely surprising news from Monday, the guilty plea from George Papadopoulos, the former Trump campaign staffer and real cool dude, who has now admitted to lying to the FBI. He could be a real problem here, because we now know not only did Papadopoulos have contact with the Russians during the campaign, who apparently told him through an intermediary that they had dirt on Hillary Clinton, but he mentioned his Russian contacts to the campaign, who responded like this.
A Trump campaign supervisor told Papadopoulos, quote, "I would encourage you to pursue contact with Russians," and that he had done great work.
You know, it speaks to the sheer stupidity of the people involved here that so many of them often left written records of their potentially criminal actions. It's like if during Watergate we had an email chain of Howard Hunt saying "about to break in" and Nixon replying "nice." But you know what? This would not be Stupid Watergate without some truly idiotic details, because one of Papadopoulos' former professors described him as zealous and a bit simple, which, incidentally, is also how you would describe a golden retriever in ISIS. And some of his Russian sources turned out to be pretty unimpressive.
Papadopoulos was in London, meeting with his Russian connections, including a woman he thought was Vladimir Putin's niece, but turns out was not.
That's right. We are now living in an era where the top New York Times headline could conceivably have been "Shades McCool got catfished by a fake Putin niece." Trump is now also desperately trying to distance himself from Papadopoulos, calling him a low-level volunteer, which is a pretty weak defence, because not only did Trump once call him an excellent guy, they were photographed together in a national security meeting during the campaign. That photograph, interestingly, was released earlier this week when the seal on grand jury testimony was... I'm just kidding. Trump posted it to his Instagram last March. Of course he did. And while that photo looks pretty damning, the White House this week insisted that it meant nothing.
Sir, how can you describe Mr. Papadopoulos as having a limited role when there's a photograph of Mr. Papadopoulos sitting at a table with
the
then candidate
has
Trump?
Thousands of photographs with millions of people, yeah. So.
Now, she is not actually wrong there. Trump has taken photos with many, many people. Here's one of him with O.J. Simpson. Here's one of Trump and Harvey Weinstein. Here he is with Grimace. So think about that. The president has smiled for photos with murderers, sexual predators, and in the case of Grimace, both. But the point is, none of them got to sit at the table with Trump and his campaign staff. And when Trump was asked on Friday about what had happened in that meeting, this was his response.
I don't remember much about that meeting. It was a very unimportant meeting, took place a long time. Don't remember much about it.
Oh, You don't remember. That is convenient, although it's slightly undercut by one of Trump's favourite boasts.
People know me for my memory. It's called, like, up here, and it's called memory, and it's called other things. I'm fortunate that I have a good memory. I have a good memory. I have, like, a good memory. I have a very good memory. I have a good memory, like a great memory. I have a great memory. One of the great memories of all time.
Yeah, and there is just no way to reconcile those two positions, although Trump has actually tried in the past, because when he was asked during a deposition in 2015 about claiming that he had one of the world's great memories, he said, and I quote, "I don't remember saying that. As good as my memory is, I don't remember that. But I have a good memory." So right now, there are 3 people from the Trump campaign facing serious charges about their entanglements overseas. And in all 3 cases, Trump's pushback has basically been, I don't know anything about the people I should have known those things about. And that is his signature move. He is playing the Trump card. And what I mean by that is he's using his own incompetence as a defence. It's the same way that you might excuse the behaviour of a dog or a small child. If you found your dog pissing on a rug and then your child urinating on the dog, you would think, yeah, I'm annoyed, but they're idiots who don't know what they're doing, so they get to walk away from this one. That is the Trump card. And the worrying thing here is it may work for Trump, because think about what the counter-argument may have to be. This is a meticulous man who made strategic decisions fully aware of the consequences of his actions. That could be a tough case to make, but we cannot accept the Trump card as his defence here. Because if we do, just think about what we would actually be saying there. We'd be saying, look, this guy is too dumb to really understand what he's doing, so I guess we have no choice but to let him keep being president. Please, let's not do that. And now, this.
And now, the inevitable sad consequences of morning shows celebrating Halloween.
Halloween has come to Channel 6. Hello, I am the Gru and you are my minions.
Yes, we are the minions.
I feel like I look like Hamburglar. Can we tell people?
Yes,
I can be Hamburglar.
He's Hamburglar.
I'm Hamburglar.
On a mission from God.
No, we're on a mission
We're
from
on
God.
a mission from
Mission
God.
from God.
Mario. It's a Mario.
Nice. This is Kate, one of our interns.
Hi, Kate.
She is the operation game, I guess.
We're getting over to Elisa Henry. I gotta watch my corn stalks. Let me come through here, Elisa.
Oh my goodness. How long did it take to put like all this?
2 seconds.
Really fast? Yeah.
Hey, Wilma. Well, you'll be Wilma later on in the show because we can't exactly have you reading the news, in a costume.
Every year we go
It just doesn't work.
More developments in a Houston County truck bombing case coming up.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns jobs. Literally the only reason that anyone gets up before 11 a.m. Politicians care about jobs more than anything else, as you can tell from how often they mention them.
These are the things I focus on. Jobs, jobs, jobs.
Jobs, jobs, jobs.
Jobs, jobs, and jobs, period.
Jobs, jobs, jobs.
It's about jobs, 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 good-paying jobs.
It's about jobs. Jobs, 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 and more jobs, American jobs.
Politicians seem to think that jobs are like Beetlejuice. If you just say the word a magic number of times, eventually they'll just pop up out of nowhere. Now, more specifically tonight, I'd like to talk about one of the ways that politicians try to create jobs, economic development incentives. And I know that that doesn't sound interesting. Wait, what are you doing? You're putting me picture in picture? Is that Entourage the movie? Fine, you know what? Switch over the audio, listen to the first line, you'll be back.
I may have to jerk it before we even get there.
Oh, how about that? All of a sudden, a show about economic development doesn't seem like the worst thing you could be watching, does it? So, as I was saying, economic development incentives are essentially when state and local governments offer perks to companies to entice them to build or expand in their area. Here in New York, there is a program called Startup New York, which launched with some pretty astounding tax breaks.
Startup New York creates 0 tax zones for new businesses for 10 years. 0 property tax, 0 corporate tax, 0 business tax, and 0 income tax.
Wow. Zero property, corporate, business, and income tax. And I believe that sound you just heard was Donald Trump getting an erection. Wait for it, don't worry, wait for it, wait for it. It's gone again. See you next year, little buddy. And look, it's not just New York. All 50 states offer some kind of incentives, like tax breaks, to attract companies. And the argument is that they attract employers, which attract jobs, which lead to spending, which creates more jobs, and so on and so on and so on. And many places have bought into this hard, trying to outbid one another for businesses. Indiana even once took out attack ads on other states, like this billboard, which read, "Illinois by higher taxes, come to Indiana, a state that works." And that's pretty aggressive, although it's actually much tamer than their original billboard, "Just Arkansas your tax bill. I'd hope you like our tax breaks, because if you Colorado don't, we'll Connecticut cut your fucking balls off." And if a company is big enough, it can even start a bidding war itself. That is actually happening right now with Amazon. They are planning to build a second headquarters somewhere in North America, and they are making governments bid for it. They even released 8 pages of instructions for candidates telling them to think big and be creative, which led many cities to do stupid shit like this.
Overnight, the Big Apple looking more like an orange. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio lighting up the city in, quote, Amazon orange.
The city of Birmingham is using giant Amazon boxes to try to get Amazon's attention.
Stonecrest, Georgia, offering to create a new town of Amazon, Georgia.
They would create a new town and name it Amazon. You know, to compete, I'm not surprised that Omaha, Nebraska didn't offer to let Jeff Bezos kill any 3 people he likes. Because you know he would. Look at him. He wants it so bad. It's the only thing he can't have, and he wants it. And numerous mayors made direct appeals to Amazon with videos ending in versions of the same bad joke.
Hey, Alexa, where should Amazon locate HQ to?
In Frisco, Texas.
Alexa, where is the most interesting company in the world going to locate?
Obviously, Washington, D.C.
So, Alexa, where is the best place for Amazon to locate its second world headquarters?
Danbury, Connecticut.
I told you so.
You know, my one and only worry with all of those ads, and I mean this sincerely, is, are they almost too hilarious? But those stunts are just window dressing. What Amazon cares much, much more about, as they mentioned in their instructions 21 times, are incentives. And while few places are revealing what they offered, we do know that New Jersey reportedly offered $7 billion in tax breaks, which is an insane amount that other places may now have to compete with. And think about what that means. That could mean billions of tax dollars that would not be collected for things like roads or schools or hospitals. And Amazon already has more money than it knows what to do with. How else can you explain the existence of Goliath, a show that, and this is true, literally nobody has ever seen? Nobody. No human, no animal, nobody. No one. Does it even exist? If you make a show and no one watches it, does it exist? Discuss. And that is the thing here. We give companies a lot of money through these incentives. By one estimate, in 2015, they cost state and local governments $45 billion. And that money can go to some questionable projects. For instance, a few years ago, Kentucky took a big swing on this.
A full-size replica of Noah's Ark is drawing thousands of visitors to Williamstown, Kentucky.
This is the Ark Encounter, a chapter from Genesis told on a $100 million budget. 4 floors of Noah, his family, and beasts, great and small. The project received $18 million in Kentucky tax incentives.
$18 million of tax breaks for a gigantic Ark museum. And I'm not saying that that is inherently a bad idea. I do kind of want to see this thing, especially as its website genuinely has a section devoted to the question, what about all the manure? The answer, apparently, is slatted floors or multiple level cages, which is really not a good answer, because you do not want to be the animal on the lowest level of that ship. And while the Ark clearly created some jobs, there were some caveats to those positions.
Critics complain of discrimination in hiring. Only Christians, no gays or lesbians, and single people have to sign a chastity pledge.
Oh, come on! Aside from the homophobia, chastity is a pretty weird rule to put in place for a museum that's pretty much a gigantic replica of a floating fuck zoo. They weren't brought in 2 by 2 so that everyone would have a swim buddy. They were on that boat to fuck. To fuck. But the justification for taking a gamble on a gigantic ark was that it would be a boon to the whole area. And to hear one local official tell it, the economic impact has been underwhelming.
The Ark's success has not had the ripple effect many hoped it would.
Downtown Williamstown, which was expecting increased car and foot traffic, has almost as many empty storefronts as occupied storefronts.
What's it meant for downtown Williamstown?
Nothing. I don't mean to sound negative in this interview, but there's nothing here.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense, because once you've spent 3 hours walking around a wooden boat with sexually frustrated tour guides and haunted by the mental image of a miserable zebra neck deep in shit because apparently decks were assigned alphabetically, you're probably going to skip lunch in town. And look, a well-designed, closely monitored programme with clear goals might make sense to an area, but too often the terms are extremely lax. Some don't require that jobs be created at all, and some require almost laughably few. Remember Startup New York? 0 taxes for a decade? Oh, shit, I'm sorry. Don't think about it, I'm sure it will pass. That program's hiring requirements were that you create just 1 new job a year. And the state recently considered scaling that back to 1 new job in the first 5 years. And sometimes these incentives are given out even when they may not be necessary. Take a look at Fargo, North Dakota. You know what? He's not wrong. He's not wrong, and I knew that would do the job. Fargo gave a tax break to FedEx for moving a facility to their city. But why? Did they really need to? Because just listen to what happened when one city council member asked that very question of a FedEx representative.
Mr. Wilson, if you don't get this exemption, will you still move to Fargo? Yes, sir, we will. Okay.
Yet, 10 minutes later, the council voted to give FedEx that exemption. Why? Also, if someone wants to willingly move to Fargo, you don't offer them tax incentives. You simply offer them a full psychological workup that starts with the question, who did you murder? We'll still let you live here, but we do need to know. And then there are programmes narrowly set up to encourage a particular industry to grow, which can sound great, but may not lead to good, permanent jobs. Take film and TV incentives. At some point in the last couple of decades, nearly every state decided that they wanted to be the next Hollywood, and now 31 states have incentive programmes for film or TV. The problem with that is, if you are one of them, you have 30 other states competing with you hard. And because film productions are portable, if you try and scale back your incentives, they'll just go wherever a better deal is. Just listen to this movie producer who has taken advantage of multiple states' incentives.
I would never make a movie where I didn't get an incentive, and I don't ever intend to. But at the end of the day, if there's an incentive, it's good for me.
And look, he's not wrong. I mean, yes, he looks like every woman's worst ex-boyfriend, but he's not wrong. It is not his job to worry about whether his incentives are good for states. It is his job to, I'm assuming, refer to sushi as sush, because he definitely does that. But it should be someone's job to worry about the effects of these programmes. And on some occasions, when states have done that, the news they got was not great. For instance, Louisiana found that for every $1 it spent on its film programme, it generated just 22 cents of tax revenue, which sounds bad, but which is still better than Maryland, which made just 10 cents for every $1 spent, which is still better than Connecticut's programme, which returned only 7 cents on the dollar. That's like putting $1 into a vending machine and getting a single yellow starburst in return. At some point, what you're getting out is not worth what you're putting in. And defenders of economic incentives will say that's just a fraction of the broader economic benefit that they bring. The problem is, there's not much evidence for that. And I know that accounting for the total economic impact of anything is tricky, but We are gambling billions of dollars on little more than faith, and even basic information can be really hard to come by. One study found that 3/4 of major state development programs don't even disclose actual jobs created or workers trained. So we're basically throwing money down a hole and hoping it brings us prosperity, which is the exact business model of a fucking wishing well. And to see this at perhaps its most pointless, just look at Kansas and Missouri. They've offered competing tax breaks to businesses for years, which has made things particularly interesting in one metro area.
So I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. That's it behind me. There is Kansas City, Kansas. 2 states, 1 metro area, but both states offer subsidies for job creation. Create a job, you get a tax break. So what do businesses do? A Missouri business will move some employees over to Kansas City, Kansas, and claim a tax break, move them back, claim another tax break.
It's true. For instance, Kansas City, Missouri lost corporate offices for all these companies to Kansas City, Kansas, which in turn lost offices for all these companies to Kansas City, Missouri. And that isn't creating jobs any more than moving your couch from the bedroom to the living room is creating fucking furniture. And this war has come at a real cost. A local foundation has studied 2 state-level incentives programs and estimates that since 2009, around 6,600 jobs have moved from Missouri to Kansas, while around 5,500 jobs have moved from Kansas to Missouri, meaning there's been a net gain of around 1,100 jobs on the Kansas side of the line at a combined cost to the 2 states of $331 million in lost tax revenue. And think about that for a second. You could create a program where the first 1,100 people to move to Kansas City from Missouri would each get a Ferrari, which they could then drive around a giant pile of $30 million that the state had set on fire, and you'd actually be fiscally responsible because you would have saved the area $20 million. Look, it is pretty clear that economic development needs to be done in a much smarter way. And I don't fully blame the companies for this, because if governments are going to offer ridiculous incentives, they are going to take them. So governments need to hold themselves and companies more accountable. And if companies aren't producing what they promised, we need a system to claw our money back. But to find that out, we're going to need much more oversight over these programs and what we're getting in return. Although I will tell you one thing that I know for sure we got in return: the Entourage movie. That got a $5.8 million tax credit from California, and where else were they going to film Entourage? Idaho? So, California, please know that you indirectly had a hand in producing a movie which, may I remind you, had this for its very first line.
I may have to jerk it before we even get there.
You know what? I've got to say this. Congratulations, Kentucky Ark Museum, because somehow you've become the second worst taxpayer-subsidised fuckboat in this story. And now, this.
And now, let's check in with Halloween traffic and weather.
33 degrees, winds out of the west at 13. That's making it feel like 24.
Things are already changing rapidly. There's some snow embedded with the cold right here.
Seeing a few clouds out there right now. We are expecting some rain.
34 here, but we're tapping into some really cold air off to the west.
Sunday, there is a cold front coming in. I know none of you are taking me serious right now.
We have an overturned semi-truck, and there's no ETA yet.
Really heavy delays, over an hour delay from Pennsylvania Avenue to the Wilson Bridge.
Yeah, you've probably never seen this before, the bodiless weatherman.
My head is floating over the southbound side, that northbound traffic heading away from us there.
Oh, we've got zombies in the forecast!
The 2 other suspects are charged with accessory to murder.
Well, we are seeing clear skies starting off your Tuesday on this Halloween.
And finally tonight, a quick word on the United States Postal Service. Drivers of windowless white vans you can actually trust. The Postal Service has fallen on hard times recently. It's massively in debt, and last year posted a loss of $5.6 billion, which is hardly surprising, really, because why send a letter when you can send an email? I mean, you could send a 2-sentence letter in the mail to your friend in all lowercase that reads, "Hey, finally saw The Martian. It was okay." But that would be both inefficient and deeply weird. So the Postal Service is currently fighting to stay relevant and cool, which is hard for an organisation whose very uniforms make you look like a sexual predator on safari. Still, They are trying to get themselves out there, and one recent attempt is absolutely incredible, because did you know that since 2015, the Postal Service has had its own television show? It's on Saturday mornings, and it's called The Inspectors. And while it airs on CBS, its budget is funded by the government. And the show is pretty much what you would expect if a bunch of civil servants from the Postal Service had their own show.
I'm Preston Wainwright, and this is my mom, Amanda. She's a United States Postal Inspector, which means she solves any crime that uses the mail. My dad was an inspector too, one of the best, until I lost him and the use of my legs in a car accident. Now I'm following my own dream, with an internship in the crime lab and the help of my best friends. Together, we are the Inspectors.
The whole thing is basically a mix of teenage soap opera, police procedural, and a PSA about how to protect yourself from various mail-related crimes, all of which amounts to a kind of CSI mailbox. Its stars include this guy, who looks exactly like Anthony Michael Hall. And you may think that I'm just cherry-picking similar photos there, but I'm not. Their photos are all similar. Tell me, which of these actors was in The Breakfast Club and which wasn't? You can't do it, that's my point. The problem is that there is something about the innately aggressive tone of a cop show and postal inspectors that doesn't seem to quite fit.
I want to see my lawyer. I know my rights, and I will not be intimidated by you people. Who are you? Anyway, the FBI?
I told you, we're postal inspectors.
We're your worst nightmare. We've got a 98% conviction rate. You're about to raise it to 99.
OK. First of all, if a postal inspector is your worst nightmare, you need to have worse nightmares. There's a reason that Freddy Krueger killed people. He doesn't fine them for manufacturing counterfeit stamps. Also, about that conviction rate line, that's not how numbers work. Say they've convicted 980 out of 1,000 people, giving them a 98% conviction rate. By convicting one more person, their rate isn't now 99, it's 98.1. You know what? I don't often say this on this show, but I'm going to give this our official stamp of never mind. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Let it go. Never mind. Now, the episodes are 30 minutes long, but I can actually run you through one pretty quickly. A recent story featured the postal inspectors getting involved in a cyber ransom case after they find some evidence on an envelope, and they work fast.
Hopefully Georgia can match this guacamole to the stuff on the letter.
Okay, we should have the results of the guacamole analysis in a few minutes. Okay, and the elements from the guacamole sample you brought in today is almost identical to the guac on the envelope.
Fiesta's over, Frank.
U.S. Postal Inspectors up against a taco truck.
So, that is just solidly written dialogue right there. Except for the part where the guy says, "Oh, man." Because if someone whips out a badge and yells, "US Postal Inspectors," the only natural reaction is going to be, "You guys have badges? Why?" But look, don't get me wrong, this isn't just about the cases. This is a show that wants you to invest in the histories and the complex emotions of its characters.
With all the preparations for this party, I plumb forgot to get you something for your birthday.
Oh, Mitch, you don't have to do that.
And so you've been asking about it, so I thought, I'd tell you why I became a letter carrier after the military. You see, while I was deployed overseas, every day I saw how important a letter or a care package from home could be to a soldier who was tired or scared or was missing home. And it made all the difference in the world. And I knew that when I got home, I wanted to be a part of that smile every day. So happy birthday, Ed.
That is officially the world's shittiest birthday present. Oh, sorry I couldn't get you a gift, but how about I make you stand there for what will feel like an eternity while I tear up talking about mail? That's a gift, right? I just gave you something. Now, the Postal Service even made their own behind-the-scenes video on the set of The Inspectors, featuring Anthony Bootleg Hall and the rest of the cast talking about what a great agency the USPS is. But the best and saddest part is when they interview the real-life Chief Postal Inspector, Guy Cottrell, who has an interesting assessment of his own status in Hollywood.
I came here starstruck looking at the actors, and the actors look at me and the rest of our inspectors here just as starstruck because we're really the postal inspectors doing the work. So as cool as it is for us to see a TV show, it's just as cool for them to see real postal inspectors.
No, it isn't, Guy. You're wrong about that. You've badly misinterpreted the tone of the actor who found out he had to meet with you and said, "Wow, I can't believe this is happening." Now, as this is a Saturday morning programme, it's ideally supposed to be geared towards kids and teens, and yet we checked, and the main audience for the show is 55 and older, which is just not ideal, because the Postal Service needs to get its message out. The whole point of this show is to educate viewers about things like mail fraud, identity theft, and the importance of postal inspectors, but it can't do that if it isn't reaching a broad audience. So what they need to do is insert their message into existing popular shows. And here is where we come in, because we've called in a few favours from some of the most popular shows around, and they agreed to help out. First, there's this.
Layla McQueen, Shantae Eustace, Naisha Lopez. Even though you are a truly fierce tigress, I noticed that you forgot to check for watermarks on postal money orders and failed to turn on two-step verification. The Postal Inspection Service can help you avoid scams. But if you can't love yourself, girl, how are you gonna be truly safe from identity theft? Now, sashay away.
Tell me that is not educational and fierce. You can't, because it's both. But look, not everyone watches reality shows. What people do watch, though, is This Is Us, which makes you laugh and makes you cry and makes you wonder when the fuck they're going to explain how the father dies. Why won't you just tell us, you monsters? Tell us so we can prepare ourselves. Anyway, if you could sneak some male-related dialogue into that show, that'd be pretty amazing, right? Take a look.
Hey, babe.
Hey.
Hey, did you get the mail today?
I did. And once again, no suspicious or fraudulent packages in it.
Wow, you know, it's a good thing we have a U.S. Postal Inspection Service. Otherwise, I could be killed by a mail bomb one day.
Ugh, be terrible if that happened.
Yeah, but luckily it won't. A mail bomb is definitely not how I die one day.
I mean, even if you did die a premature death, I doubt it would be from a mail bomb.
Yeah, definitely not. No, I'm gonna live forever. I'm a fucking invincible god.
See? Perfect. The key here, as you've already seen so far, is to do it subtly. Just make it a completely normal part of a completely normal scene.
I'm telling you, man, it's like the system is set up to keep us in here.
Duh, that's the prison industrial complex, girl.
Whoa, ease up.
Not everything about the federal government is bad. Let us not forget about the hardworking men and women of the United States Postal Inspection Service.
You know what, that is true. The USPS does guard us from serious crimes.
Fuck that. The USPS is trash.
I will cut you! I will cut you! You don't know me. You don't know the USPS. This is why I told you to not be disrespecting the postal inspectors in front of her. If you'd like to know more about them, all you have to do is simply call 1-877-876-2455. All right, I'll call them today.
You're welcome, Postal Service. Our gift to you. That's our show. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week. Good night.